Billionaire discovers Maid's heartbreaking secret. 3 surprising truths transform lives forever. Nathan Hale stood at the pinnacle of his opulent mansion, the walls echoing his every footstep as he traversed the vast hallways. No one was there to greet him. His heart sank deeper with each step, a heavy thud in the emptiness around him. Wealth surrounded him like a gilded cage, and yet he was profoundly alone. The expectancy from his high-status friends weighed on him like chains. Wealth equated to worth in their eyes, and he often found himself grappling with the insipid conversations about stock prices and luxury cars that left him weary. But today, it was much more than the hollow chatter that made his stomach twist. It was the unsettling connection he felt with Maria, the new maid, that gnawed at him. Maria was a hard-working woman from Texas, navigating life's tides with a quiet determination that belied her circumstances. She had sacrificed her artistry, the vibrant paintings that should have adorned galleries now hidden away in the corners of her small room. Her dreams lingered like faint echoes in his mind, a stark contrast to his own heavily forged chains of societal expectations. He had surprised himself when he stumbled into her sanctuary, where color burst forth from the canvases, breathing life into the mundane drudgery of service. Those paintings spoke stories of struggle and resilience, and he found himself inexplicably drawn to her world. Yet, with each passing moment, he felt an internal struggle, a powerful moral dilemma gnawing at his core. How could he confront the whispers that surrounded him? His peers would never accept a connection to someone they deemed beneath them. Nathan's mind raced, tangled with doubt and desire. He could already imagine their scornful gazes, the sneers behind perfectly manicured smiles. Could he support Maria, risk everything to help her revive her creative spirit, and potentially face isolation from those who define success as a wealthy facade? Or would he slip back into the shadowy comfort of societal norms, losing himself further in conformity? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The anxiety grew as he stood at the crossroads of his life, between 2 worlds that felt irreconcilable. A moment of clarity almost mocked him, illuminating the truth that status was meaningless when dreams languished unfulfilled. But the thought of Maria leaving his life, slipping away without a trace, rattled him. Then it happened, a silence that screamed. Maria disappeared, leaving behind only a handful of her paintings. Panic surged through him. What if she had lost hope entirely? A mix of determination and anguish filled him as he gathered her works, preparing them for an exhibit, an act of defiance against his affluent peers. But in delving deeper into her life, he unearthed buried secrets of his own family's past, his privilege tempered by its own whispers of loss and dreams unrealized. Now, Nathan stood on the precipice of an irrevocable decision, ready to unleash a truth that could redefine both their lives. Would he confront the inevitable backlash, risking societal rejection, or embrace a fresh start rooted in sincerity and compassion? The first brushstrokes were laid upon his future, but shadows of uncertainty loomed large. What would be the price of love that defies boundaries? As the night of the exhibit approached, the weight of anguish drew tighter around him, drawing closer to an answer still shrouded in darkness. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting warm hues across the sky, Nathan Hale found himself staring at the paintings scattered across his grand dining room table. Each canvas resonated with Maria's spirit, the hidden stories escaping their edges and intertwining with his consciousness. Yet now, as an impending exhibit loomed, his own creativity felt stifled and suffocated beneath the weight of his choices. Would the paintings speak for her, or, as he feared, would they speak only of his privileged life, a life that had failed to recognize genuine talent? The thought burrowed into his mind, an echo of self-doubt. Gathering his thoughts, Nathan took a step back, wanting to inhale the emotions swirling in the room. Flashes of uncertainty turned to self-recrimination. He was a man who lived within walls rich with extravagance but devoid of true worth. With a quick movement, he picked up a palette knife, its coolness a contrast to the heat brewing in his chest. It was a tool of his previous artistic endeavors, back in high school when he had dabbled in charcoal sketches that elicited praise from his classmates. Back then, he had felt a brush with vulnerability, reciprocity from applause, and a glimpse of freedom. Yet that part of him had been eclipsed by ambition, by expectations, and by the oppressive need to conflate wealth with identity. Suddenly, a rush of determination surged through him. He had witnessed Maria's resilience, the way she infused brushstrokes with both abandonment and intensity. Her paintings weren't merely artistic expressions, they were extensions of herself, courage incarnate. If he was to honor her, he needed to embrace that spirit. With renewed vigor, Nathan picked up a brush. He began to mimic the strokes he had observed in her work, geometrically chaotic yet emotionally profound. Each stroke felt like a confession, unraveling the tightly coiled strings of his own ambitions, revealing the raw, unfiltered facets of his identity. With every click of the brush against the canvas, he was reclaiming a piece of himself buried under the glittering facade of wealth. Hours passed as he painted the evening away, lost in an ocean of colors and emotion. Glimpses of Maria's inspiration and turmoil seeped into his artistic interpretation. Yet amidst the newfound clarity, another thought crept in, a realization. Somehow, through all of this, he was learning to confront the echoes of his ancestors, their own aspirations mingling with regrets and dreams left unfulfilled. Painting became his medium of absolution, carving out a space to confront societal constraints and his deeply woven fears. The question nagged at him. What if he combined his wealth and resources with her raw talent? The idea unfolded like an origami figure, intricate yet fragile. He envisioned the exhibit as more than merely showcasing her work, but a platform for transformation, for Maria, for himself, and perhaps for his distant peers. But what would that mean? Would he truly have the courage to confront the scorn of his social circles? The gallery opening would be a reckoning. Would he bring his world crashing into Maria's understated purity, or would he allow the status quo to dictate his feelings? He realized the stakes were even higher. If he failed to arrive at authenticity, it would all be for naught. As dawn approached, casting daylight across newly painted canvases, suffused with vibrant reflections of struggle and hope, Nathan stood at yet another crossroads. The decision loomed. Would he embrace this unfolding possibility, dive headfirst into an uncharted emotional territory, or retreat into the safe embrace of wealth and familiarity? The moment of truth arrived, and Nathan felt his breath hitch. Would he be able to confront the inevitable backlash and finally break the chains binding him? The early morning light streamed into Nathan's studio, dampening the flickering shadows that flitted across the walls. His canvases stood sentinel, bearing witness to his late-night revelations. Now, as the sun radiated warmth, it illuminated not just the paintings, but also the gnawing rift within him. Today was pivotal. The unveiling loomed, and with it the urgent challenge to redefine himself. Nathan busied himself preparing for the day, but his mind was fractured, a symphony of doubt and resolve battling for dominance. As he brushed his hair, he confronted his reflection, a man consumed by paradise, but shackled by expectation. He ached to showcase Maria's work in a manner that was sincere, untainted by the superficial gloss of his privileged background. But what if her story, intertwined with his, unraveled the tapestry of his own identity? At breakfast, he sat at the grand table, the clattering of silverware echoing through the opulence that felt foreign under the weight of his thoughts. His parents, seated at the opposite ends, exchanged polite conversation, oblivious to the storm brewing within Nathan. They spoke of the latest socialite events, business ventures, and wealth accumulation, all of which felt hollow compared to the vibrant legacy he sought to present through Maria's art.
"Are you ready for the gallery, darling?" his mother inquired, glossing over the lack of engagement she often aimed.
"Yeah, of course. Just making sure everything's in order," he replied, his words echoing with an unfamiliar emptiness. He pushed his plate away, no longer hungry for the extravagant feast laid before him. Instead, he craved substance, both artistic and emotional. The thought echoed in his mind: Maria's story must be told authentically. But how could that harmony be achieved without risking the disapproval of those who admired the golden facade he had built? With the final arrangements for the gallery opening consuming him, Nathan sought solace at Maria's unfinished works. He returned to the studio, pulled the canvas closer, and studied it with a renewed purpose. What were the truths hidden within? They weren't just shades of color or wild brushstrokes. They were confessions, invitations into a world rich in pain, hope, and resilience. He needed to delve deeper, to feel what she felt, to embody her journey. His breathing steadied as he plunged the palette knife into the paint, dragging it across the canvas with unexpected ferocity. Instead of mimicking her style, he realized he needed to imbue it with vulnerability from his own experiences, transforming the work into a collective narrative, their narrative. The juxtaposition of his privilege against Maria's struggles could yield a powerful statement. With purpose pulsating through his veins, Nathan stumbled upon a hidden capability: storytelling through creation. He discovered insight in the emotional fray, an ability to channel both sorrow and joy in vibrant strokes. The ensuing days would require bravery, not just in showcasing the artwork, but in unveiling the truth about his own life, putting aside both the lie of aspirations and the shallow accolades of his past. Yet, lurking in the corners of his thoughts was another unavoidable question. Would the truth resonate with their elite circles? The fear of rejection loomed like a specter. He wrestled with the notion that authenticity could invite ridicule or even worse, alienation. Was he ready to weather that storm? As he put the finishing touches on the piece, the stakes deepened. The art would serve as a revelation, unearthing not just Maria's essence, but the hidden fractures of his soul. As the sun set, casting dramatic shadows across his canvases, Nathan faced the gallery. The moment of truth loomed even larger. Would he have the courage to step forward, to embody both Maria's spirit and his own, in a world poised to judge? The answer danced tantalizingly close. An electrifying spark ignited within him. It was time to embrace vulnerability. But was he prepared for the chaos that truth might unleash? The morning of the unveiling arrived with a suffocating tension that gripped Nathan, high above the chatter of his parents and friends as they gathered in the lavish gallery space. Each light fixture shimmered, a symbol of the wealth he had once taken for granted. In that moment, however, the grandeur felt like a gilded cage, trapping him in an identity he no longer desired. Art reflected life, he realized, and
the true art he wished to present felt distorted under the weight of expectation. As guests milled about, he withdrew to a corner, away from the prying eyes and idle conversations. The canvas, destined to be the centerpiece, stood tall, a vivid explosion of color pulsating with stories yearning to be unveiled. Deep inside, a voice echoed with urgency. "This is your chance, Nathan." But the fear of unveiling his true self alongside Maria's work was a heavy chain tethering him to inaction. He closed his eyes, and in that moment he could almost hear Maria's whispers, the laughter of a friendship forged during late-night discussions, the weight of vulnerability as she shared her struggles. Suddenly, he understood that the only way to honor her story would be to embrace his own half-formed narrative, one built not just on privilege, but enriched by his own burgeoning awareness and desire for authenticity.
Stepping away from the mosaic of socialites and admirers, he sought out his mentor, the renowned artist Clara, who had always challenged him to dig deeper beneath the surface. She was engrossed in conversation, but he interrupted. "Can I ask you something important?" Clara turned, her hazel eyes piercing through him with a mix of concern and curiosity. "Is this about the unveiling?" "It is," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if I'm not ready? What if everyone hates what I've created?" Art is not about pleasing everyone, Nathan. It is about revealing something genuine, something raw. "You have a responsibility to be yourself among the cacophony of influence," she said, a tinge of urgency punctuating her words. "Sometimes it's that very discomfort in presenting your truth that fuels the most potent creation." Each word cemented itself in his mind, igniting a tumult of realizations. He was not simply presenting Maria's legacy, he was forging his own. The fusion of their journeys might be the radical statement the art world needed. As they talked, Clara guided him gently through meditative exercises meant to quiet the doubt gnawing at him. "Remember, the audience may come with their judgments, but it is essential that you remain steadfast in your intention. Be honest about your privilege, your immaturity, your transformation. The art isn't an escape, it's an embrace of who you are, both your past and your purpose." A newfound resolve solidified within Nathan. Trusting the fierce undercurrents of his narrative would demand vulnerability, yet it also promised liberation. He could stand before his guests with the understanding of the contrasting experiences he and Maria embodied. Claiming their truth had to come from a place of vulnerability, courage, and above all, authenticity. As the gathered crowd began to look for him, anticipation pulsed through the room. Nathan lingered a moment longer with Clara, his heart racing. "Thank you," he breathed, testing the weight of those words in his mouth. "Now, go out there and let your voice be heard," she urged, a firm yet supportive push towards his inevitable confrontation. With eyes that
felt newly opened and armor forged in self-awareness, Nathan emerged from the shadows. He made his way through the murmuring crowd, every step bringing with it the thrill of impending revelation. Yet the familiar fear of judgment shadowed him. The moment of truth had arrived, but looming in the background was the reckoning of acceptance, not just from his audience, but from himself. In that instant, he smiled, ready to reclaim his story. As he reached the front of the crowd, a hand grasped his shoulder. He turns to find a familiar face from his past, someone who represented the embodiment of his fears. Nathan's heart sank, and the air thickened with uncertainty. Could he truly face the judgment of his life choices? The weight of all he had discovered swayed on the edge of revelation, waiting for his response. Nathan's breath quickened, his gaze narrowing on the face etched with memories he had tried so hard to escape. Jason, his childhood friend turned critic, stood before him, a smug smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. The years melted away, returning memories of privilege and entitlement, of a world where success was measured by lineage rather than merit. "Look who finally decided to show up," Jason said, his voice dripping with condescension. "Are you really going to unveil whatever that is? I doubt anyone cares about your feelings or your little experiment." The words struck like ice, chilling Nathan to the core and igniting an echoing turmoil within him. For a moment, he felt the pull of old habits, the urge to hide, to blend into the opulence around him, to be anyone but himself. But Clara's voice rang through his mind. Art is an embrace of who you are. He straightened his spine, a flicker of defiance igniting in his belly. "You have no idea what it took for me to create this," he countered, each word deliberately slow, as if to ensure he believed them. "This isn't just art, it's an embodiment of truths that matter, not just to me, but to everyone who struggled for authenticity." Jason's laughter echoed in the vastness of the gallery, drawing attention. Guests paused, the air thick with uncertainty.
Was he standing up to his past? What if he stumbled? An inner voice urged caution, but this was a turning point, a moment to persist or falter. "You actually believe you've changed?" Jason scoffed. "You had everything handed to you. You're still that naive boy playing at being an artist." The pointed barb struck deeper than Nathan anticipated. A part of him felt the weight of guilt claw at his conscience. Had he been just playing a role, conjuring narratives rather than living them? Clara's teaching surged through him, igniting his determination. True strength lay not in basking in privilege, but in confronting the layers of self he had hoped to shed. "No, Jason, I'm not pretending," Nathan replied steadily, his heart racing but resolve crystal clear. "I'm learning, I'm growing, and I refuse to diminish my journey, regardless of what you think." The room surged with energy, whispered conversations breaking out among the guests, eyes glinting with intrigue. Nathan could feel the gaze of each person weighing on his shoulders, each moment amplifying the intimacy of his struggle. He had opened a door, just enough for the flood of his vulnerability to cascade through. With every heartbeat, he felt the urge to reveal more, not just for acceptance, but for absolution. The fear of judgment still loomed large, but as he looked into Jason's eyes, another realization emerged. This encounter was not just about him. It was an opportunity to extend an olive branch to individuals scarred by pretension, people searching for genuine connection beneath the layers of societal expectation. He took a deep breath, drawing strength from the colorful chaos of his canvas behind him. "I learned about Maria, about her life, her struggles. I have known sorrow, the weight of expectation," he continued, keeping his voice firm yet plaintive. "This art, it's an exploration of what it means to thrive in contrast, of privilege versus struggle. It's messy and human. It's honest." Jason's expression faltered for an instant, uncertainty flickering across his features, possibly recognition of Nathan's authenticity. Nathan's hope flickered. Could he break through the callousness, not in a harsh way, but through genuine dialogue? Just as Nathan crafted the words to bring closure, another hand grasped his arm, a different touch this time, more supportive than Jason's. Clara stood next to him, her eyes resting on both men. Without a hint of hesitation, she spoke up, drawing the crowd closer. "Art always thrives in an atmosphere of dialogue and dissent. It challenges, it questions. Nathan is showing us a mirror, one that makes us confront our realities." The tide of judgment shifted. Nathan realized that this conversation was just the beginning. A fissure had formed in his past, and through it, light seeped into the darkness. Standing together, man and mentor, they forged an unanticipated alliance. A moment that could redefine Nathan, not just as Maria's legacy holder, but as a creator and thinker. The final chords of tension played out, but as he felt liberation flood through him, another face emerged in the crowd, one he had not expected. The very woman whose journeys had previously inspired him. There stood Julia, with eyes wide and deep, reflecting a mixture of confusion and understanding. A part of Nathan yearned to reach out, to share his journey, but would she accept his metamorphosis? As the ambient murmurs of the crowd faded, Nathan comprehended that this moment of transformation was merely the opening passage of his refined story, a narrative intertwining the pain and joy of discovery, with uncertainty still left on the horizon. What further revelations would surface? The gallery's atmosphere shifted, tinged with something electric. Nathan's heart raced not only from the presence of Julia, but from the unfamiliar sense of belonging that flickered to life within him. Here he was, standing between past wounds and the promise of new truth, poised on the brink of enlightenment that threatened to reclaim him yet again. He scanned the room, his insides churning. Guests who once felt like fleeting shadows now appeared anchored in shared emotion, some nodding thoughtfully, others leaning forward with wide-eyed curiosity. Were they waiting for him to stumble, or could he rise to this moment of vulnerability and authenticity? Reasoning with himself, Nathan understood this was not merely about presentation, but about a genuine exchange, exposing himself to the uncertainties that trailed behind his guarded history. Clara's encouraging presence reinforced his conviction. He found solace in the energy she radiated. She had believed in him before he even recognized his own potential. Drawing a deep breath, he turned his gaze back to Julia, whose eyes sparkled with both recognition and uncertainty. The flicker of doubt in her expression nudged at him. Would she see him simply as the boy who once resided in an affluent bubble? Or would she perceive the man crafted by perseverance and transformation? Gathering his thoughts, Nathan stepped closer to her, projecting sincerity. "Julia, I know this might feel like a reach after so much time, but I need you to know that the art I'm presenting today holds layers of meaning, deeper than merely aesthetics. It's a reflection of lives unseen, people like Maria, and the stories we often overlook." Julia remained silent, but her captivated gaze urged him on. Almost instinctively, he continued to unfold his ideas. "Every stroke on my canvas speaks of struggle and conflict. It's a dialogue about aspiration and failure, a challenge to confront what we often dismiss in our rush towards success. I've fought against my own privilege, grappling with the comfort that clouds perception." Her brow furrowed as she processed his deeper narrative, and Nathan could almost witness the gears turning within her mind. "You're not just expressing art," she observed thoughtfully. "You're inviting us into a confrontation with our realities." A sudden warmth flared inside him, recognition and the power of connection. Could she perceive the disconnect he had felt in their past encounters? Nathan sensed a shared understanding blossoming between them, threading through the vulnerability that each had faced in their own worlds. Yet Jason's laugh, still echoing in the back of his mind, rumbled again, testing the strength he had just begun to explore. What if Julia saw through him? What if she was simply waiting for him to unravel under the weight of harsh judgment? No, he thought resolutely, refusing to fold under that fear. This was about resilience, not just for him, but for others who felt trapped in the shadows of their own lives. We all deserve to be acknowledged beyond our circumstances. But even as he declared this newfound strength, Nathan realized he was still a work in progress, much like the art he had created. In that vulnerability, he finally saw the worth of his journey, woven from the fabric of both pain and hope. Then, shifting his focus back to the crowd, Nathan offered a soft plea. "If my work resonates with even one person here, if it evokes empathy, then perhaps the purpose of creation has been fulfilled." The murmurs in the gallery quieted, lending him their silence. Julia's expression shifted to one of contemplation, and for a brief moment Nathan thought he saw the hint of a smile. But just as he began to embrace the warmth radiating from her gaze, he felt an unsettling calm wash over him, nudging him toward an unknown path. Before Nathan could fully process the weight of that silence, a sudden, unexpected voice sliced through the tension. "What are you saying?" It was Jason again, his challenge cutting sharply, unwilling to let Nathan bask in his moment of vulnerability. The pressure built once more, and Nathan realized he had only begun revealing his truth. He sensed the room holding its breath, suspended between judgment and understanding. Would he be ready to embrace whatever revelations awaited him next? The time had come to face the real confrontation, not only with Jason, but within himself, challenging the essence of who he was and who he wished to become. The room seemed to shrink around Nathan, the chatter hushed as all eyes turned to him, waiting. He stood at the threshold of conflict, a space where old beliefs began to fracture and new truths dared to emerge. Jason's inquiry hung in the air like a storm cloud, filled with the potential for disruption. "Why should I care about your art?" Jason's voice pierced through the tentative connection Nathan had been weaving with Julia and the audience. What makes your story worth listening to? The question echoed in Nathan's mind, forcing him to confront the insecurities he had battled for years. Jason embodied the privilege Nathan had struggled against, the very embodiment of the world he had sought to distance himself from. It was one thing to share with those who might understand, but to confront his past directly? What makes it worthwhile is not just my experience, Nathan said, clenching his fists to quell the rising tide of doubt. It's the stories behind them, the lives intertwined with every piece I create. He sensed Clara's supportive presence, urging him forward. Yet you still come from a place of privilege, Jason countered, a cruel smile tugging at his lips. Can you ever truly understand the pain of those you claim to represent? Nathan's breath caught, the accusation igniting old feelings of shame and frustration. But deep down, a flicker of resilience ignited as he recalled the struggles he'd faced, the shadows he'd fought against, and the connections he had forged through shared experiences of loss and revival. I can't claim to know every struggle, Nathan replied, his voice steadying, but I have learned from them. My art invites others to navigate those narratives with me. It's not about just seeing
The struggle. It's about acknowledging it and deciding how we can rise beyond it. As he spoke, he felt a shift inside him, a layer of certainty that pushed aside the haunting echoes of his past. He could feel Julia's gaze on him, the way her expression softened with understanding, as though she recognized the authenticity woven into his words. Jason's continued entrenchment in skepticism only fueled Nathan's determination. Here was the ultimate test, to maintain authenticity in the face of doubt, to hold his ground against the scrutiny of his self-appointed adversary. You think I'm just showcasing a surface? That's where you're wrong, Nathan pressed on, feeling a swell of emotion rise in him. Every canvas reflects a struggle. They are dialogues, conversations that invite empathy and challenge complacency. They are a wake-up call. The atmosphere began to shift again. Guests who had initially watched in judgment were now leaning in closer, their intrigue palpable. Perhaps they sensed the fire inside Nathan, a transition from self-doubt to self-advocacy. As Nathan continued to speak, fragments of his journey came spilling forth. The sleepless nights spent fighting against a silenced voice, the uncomfortable reckoning with affluence's blind spots, and the immutable determination to transform that discomfort into art that resonated beyond his own experience. Yet, amidst this newfound strength, Nathan felt the edges of fear encroach once more. Was he being too bold? Would Jason find another way to undercut him? This moment of clarity, while liberating, brought with it a volatile urgency. The room's energy shifted towards something unfathomable, hope mingling with trepidation. I refuse to be defined by my past or my privilege, Nathan asserted, locking eyes with Jason. I choose to stand for those who have no voice, to amplify their stories through my art, and I won't back down just because it's uncomfortable. His heart raced as he realized how far he had come. Nathan was no longer merely a byproduct of his upbringing. He was a vessel for change. As he inhaled deeply, he prepared to face whatever came next. Jason's eyes flashed with something akin to contempt, but that no longer mattered. The next moment was electrifying, pulling Nathan into the eye of a new storm, as he felt another weight catapulting forward, the conclusion of self-discovery hanging precariously in the balance. Would this exchange give rise to a new understanding, or would it obliterate the progress he had made? Yet, just before Nathan could unearth the ultimate revelations, a new interruption shattered the tension. An unexpected visitor stepped through the gallery doors, someone from his past who could shatter everything he had built up to this point. What was this person hiding, and how would their presence challenge everything Nathan had fought to establish? The gallery's atmosphere shifted palpably as the door swung open, slicing through the charged air like a knife. The sudden interruption pulled everyone's gaze towards the newcomer, severing Nathan's connection to the moment he had been crafting with fervor.
The figure in the doorway blurred into focus, a woman whose presence tightened Nathan's chest with the weight of shared history. Erica? The name escaped his lips before he could brace himself for the flood of memories that followed. There she stood, a person who had been a ghost in his life for years, but whose impact had lingered palpably. Their past danced in the space between them, fraught with unaddressed emotions and complicated entanglements. Erica's eyes mirrored surprise, but swiftly morphed into something more guarded. She stepped inside, a hesitant confidence layering over her apprehension. Nathan's pulse quickened. He felt exposed, a historical artifact returned to the scene of its origin. As emotions swirled, he was acutely aware of how her presence could disrupt not only his speech, but the very foundation he had been attempting to build in front of an audience that had just begun to lean towards understanding. With Jason smirking beside him, Nathan faced the challenge of remaining steadfast in his newfound conviction, even as doubts clamored for attention. He could almost hear their taunts. What could she possibly reveal that would shake your resolve? Erica's gaze softened as it landed on Jason, an instinctual recognition transforming into a defensive posture. "I need to talk to you, Nathan," she said, her voice steadying as she broke the intensity of the moment. Their eyes locked, exchanging unspoken words that had been buried for far too long. But time waited for no man, and certainly not for Nathan, who was on the precipice of self-assertion. This was either a chance to reclaim the narrative or another avenue for his insecurities to resurface. He made a decision. "Can it wait until later?" he asked, his heart pounding as he thought of the audience witnessing this very personal wrestle. "I don't think it can," she replied, glancing uncertainly at the onlookers before redirecting her attention fully back to him. "There are things you need to know, things that matter." The urgency in her tone cut through the superficiality of Jason's earlier jabs and seemed to imbue the room with a new tension. It was the kind of passion that came with old wounds being given a voice. Nathan blinked, wrestling internally with the repercussions of what those things might implicate. Hadn't he battled long enough to escape the weight of the past? "Excuse us for a moment," Nathan said, half commanding, half pleading. He turned, feeling both Jason's incredulous stare and Clara's palpable anxiety as he stepped aside with Erica. They retreated a few paces, the hum of the gallery fading as they moved into the periphery of chaos. "Why now?" he asked, frustration spilling over. "You disappeared when I pulled myself up. What could you possibly have to say that wouldn't unravel everything I've worked for?" With a deep breath, Erica mumbled something under her breath, a supplication he had not expected. "I came back because I realized you were right all those years ago. I should have believed in you. There's something you don't know about why I left." The room's energy amplified, charged now with the palpable tension of long-held secrets. Nathan's mind raced. If she held the key to a door long shut, could this drastically reframe the narratives he had constructed in his art and in his life? Just as Erica took a step closer, ready to unveil that hidden truth, Jason's voice cut through the noise with venomous clarity. "Are we really going to waste time with history when the present is right in front of us?" Nathan turned, a knot tightening in his gut. What were Jason's motives? Was he truly so threatened that he would work to derail the conversation? Or was he merely striving to maintain control? With his resolve hardening, Nathan faced the dual storm at hand, both the past in Erica and the present in Jason. Would he embrace the revelations that could shatter his perception of a cohesive narrative, or would he stand firm against the waves of challenge ahead? As the weight of uncertainty pressed down on him, it became clear. His art, his life, and all he fought for could be forever altered once the truth surfaced. And in that moment, caught between the push of the past and the pull of the present, Nathan was left questioning if the unfolding chapter would lead him into a deeper understanding of himself or tear apart the very fabric of everything he strived to create. Nathan inhaled sharply, the scent of oil paint and varnish around him blending with the gravity of Erica's return. Jason's interruption felt like an unwelcome ad in a gripping movie, as Nathan wrestled with the decision to engage fully with the past or to dismiss it entirely. "I don't think you're in a position to dictate my time," Nathan shot back at Jason, his voice steady yet laced with an undercurrent of anger. He turned his attention to Erica, whose expression teetered between worry and determination. "What do you mean there's something I don't know?" Her response came slowly, each word measured as if she were crafting an artwork with carefully chosen strokes. "I left because I needed to protect you. There were things happening in my life that you weren't aware of, and I thought distancing myself was the best way. But I've learned that was a mistake." The air hummed between them as Nathan struggled to parse her revelation. Protect him? Did she really think solitude was safety? His gut churned with anger, confusion, and a tentative flicker of hope. "You could have told me. You could have trusted me. We were supposed to be a team." "I know," Erica said, her voice strained, "but things were complicated, more complicated than I ever let on. I didn't think I deserved a place in your world once I left." Hearing this made Nathan reflect on the second-hand nature of his own decisions during her absence. Did he ever truly address his motivations, or did he only push forward, treating art as a visceral outlet for his unresolved feelings about her? Shaking off the thought, he returned his focus to her. "So, now you've returned. What do you expect me to do with this?" His tone conveyed both the weight of nostalgia and the urgency of the present. "You think I can just forget the years of silence? The effort I had to put into moving beyond you? Let me explain. Everything I did was an attempt to be brave, to do what you always said I was capable of. But now I can't play it safe anymore. It's not just about us." The earnestness in her eyes momentarily flickered into something he hadn't seen in a long time: vulnerability. Jason's presence was a red-hot ember against the dim flicker of shared history. "Let's not waste our breath on old regrets," he cut in, his confidence abrupt and jagged. "We're here for the present. You're risking everything by engaging in this conversation, Nathan. Look around. It's not just the two of you anymore." Nathan clenched his jaw, simmering between anger and purpose. Did he really want to let Jason's machinations poison this moment? It would be so easy to shove Erica back into her past role as a distant memory and return to his pursuit of triumph. But could he ignore the inadequacies that had haunted him, his past reliant on fleeting connections and unresolved tension? With a surge of resolve, he replied, "This isn't just a waste of breath for me. It's an opportunity to confront what I've been pushed to bury." He looked at Erica, letting her presence wash over him like a complex brushstroke on canvas. "Tell me everything. Unravel it. I need to know." Erica's expression shifted as a light broke across her features, the catalyst for revelation battling against the swirling uncertainties in the room. "All right, but I warn you, this may change everything." The energy surged as Nathan prepared himself for what lay ahead. The storm within was nearing a climax. Colors of fear mixed with shades of anticipation, leaving him with the abiding sense that the truth, when uncovered, would not only reshape his relationship with Erica, but redefine the very essence of his artistic expression. With hearts pounding and spirits colliding, they stood together at the edge of an emotional precipice. As Nathan leaned closer, the weight of their past pressing down upon them, he sensed that everything he had fought for might soon be eclipsed by a truth that both terrified and enlightened him. What new dimensions of understanding awaited him in Erica's revelations, and would he be ready to confront the consequences? The answer teased at the edges of his consciousness, like an unfinished canvas waiting for its bold brushstrokes to take form.
Nathan found himself immersed in the tumultuous sea of emotion that Erica's presence ignited. She stood before him, the embodiment of a past laden with untold stories, while the glossy veneer of the present threatened to crack beneath the pressure of vulnerability.
He could feel the stakes rising, not just in the face of Jason's taunts, but in the clarity that had taken hold of his spirit over the previous days. "Everything I've built," Nathan breathed, still locked in the moment, "has led me to want to embrace authenticity. But can we ever really confront the ghosts of our past without unraveling?" Erica's eyes danced with a flicker of understanding, a mirror to his own disquiet. "What if I told you my departure wasn't just about running away? There was something within me that felt like I had to protect you, protect us, from the truth of who I am and the burdens I carry." Nathan felt the surge of history brushing against their present. Each word dripped with the weight of unfulfilled dreams and buried emotions. There was a truth brewing beneath Erica's reveal, and as she continued, he leaned closer, attuning his ear to her heartbeat that matched the tension of the gallery behind them. "I made decisions that led to my separation from you, all the while thinking it would liberate you to pursue this world of affluence without my hindrance. But the irony is, leaving left me more tethered to my own regrets." Erica's voice shimmered with emotional potency, threading vulnerability into their exchange. "I didn't achieve what I intended. I fell into shadows of despair." As she spoke, Nathan finally understood the fractures of his own identity. The parallels they shared unraveled into a new horizon of connection. Within that embrace of their histories, Nathan felt the chains that once bound him tight begin to loosen. "What choices did I make, being wrapped in privilege, that led to your retreat? Was I so blind?" The moments they had forged in laughter and aspiration now surfaced with renewed poignancy, etched into the fabric of his recent revelations. He could sense Jason just behind them, his attentiveness simmering, waiting for any opportunity to undermine the emotional terrain they were attempting to build. But Nathan had no time for simulated scrutiny. He was reigniting a rapport that had paradoxically cost them both dearly. Erica inhaled deeply, each breath filled with retrospect. "My struggles with my own insecurities made it difficult to see the brilliance in your authenticity. I thought that by stepping away, I was allowing you to thrive. Maybe, in essence, I was jealous of what you received. Doubtlessly, your future was painted with vibrant colors of opportunity." As she laid bare her truths, Nathan's own journey came rushing back. Moments spent curating a life defined by expectation. But now, all he could see was an intersection with someone who had denied herself in the same breath he once exhaled freedom. A stillness surged between them, thickening the air and creating a collective understanding. "So, we've both wrestled our own limitations," he affirmed, his voice steady. "But what matters now is sharing this, our entwined realities, our narratives bereft of facade." Just as the air cascaded with possibility, a dismissive grunt from Jason broke the moment. "This is a therapy session. Talk about your art. It's what you're supposed to be doing instead of dwelling on the past." His words dripped with disdain, piercing through Nathan's newfound clarity. But this was the moment Nathan had prepared himself for. He stood firm, redirecting the energy back into the room. "My art exists to chart discovery, to strive for an authentic voice that transcends mere aesthetics. If my past and the connections I've delayed reflect the struggle against societal expectations, then this, right here, is part of that revelation." The audience leaned in, shifting like a tide of interest. Recognition sparked in their eyes, a shared acknowledgement of the fragility nestled between dreams and the reality of existence. There was power in such revelations, a strength strengthened not merely through material success, but from the rich tapestry of human experience. Turning back to Erica, he felt a gentle surge of hope. "You came here today not just to reveal past grievances, but to reclaim the narrative. Let's acknowledge how far we've both come," he said,
his heart swelling with sincerity. And as he spoke, he knew without question that his transformation had truly been a shared journey. We are no longer defined solely by our circumstances or the scars we carry. My art reflects that. Each stroke embodies recovery from pain, an inscription of hope and defiance. With the gallery's attention firmly fixed upon him, Nathan felt the culmination of his courage solidifying like fresh paint drying on an electric canvas. He saw Erica nod in quiet agreement, an unexpressed bond rippling between them. They stood as equals now, entwined in shared truths, ready to step back into the light. In a world where their stories could so easily have faded into the background, both Nathan and Erica emerged renewed, defiant in voicing their individual journeys, while simultaneously acknowledging the complexity of their intertwined narratives. And as Nathan prepared to unveil his work, clarity ignited within him with burning intensity. He possessed the strength to confront not only his isolation and privilege, but also to fully embrace the 100 other dimensions surrounding empathy and understanding. Through art and through stories, he knew he could forge a connection defined not just by acclaim, but by authenticity. With passion swelling within him, his voice lifted, illuminating the possibilities. Together, we will transform these struggles into a truth that transcends past constraints. This art holds our stories, and we will share them. The room erupted, applause ringing through the air. A validation, a recognition of growth that marked the start of a new chapter for both Nathan and Erica. As they stood side by side, a sense of belonging settled in Nathan's heart, a newfound understanding that had once been hidden. The journey had been arduous, but they had collectively uncovered strength and purpose that would redefine their lives. No longer alone behind gilded walls, Nathan stepped into the limelight, poised to share their truth, a legacy of transformation waiting to radiate outward. And here it
was the moment to embrace everything that lay ahead. Now the audience needed to respond. Would they continue to support this journey of transformation? Nathan was about to pose the challenge that solidified his resolve once and for all. This is your moment too. Nathan turned back to the vibrant canvas, the embodiment of sacrifice, hope, and resolution radiating forth. It was evident that real stories and genuine struggles could reshape lives. Their powerful resonance would be carried far beyond the walls of the gallery, igniting conversations and connections that would transcend space and time. As the crowd buzzed with renewed energy, Nathan felt every heartbeat resonate with the urgency of the moment. Here, standing together upon the precipice of their shared truth, each pulse echoed the clarity of his purpose. It was time for action, a call to the audience to recognize that the stories shared transcended beyond mere canvas strokes and played a pivotal role in shaping the world around them. Let's continue to lift each other through our narratives. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support, to leave a like now to fuel the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about how these revelations resonate with your own journey, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Join us in this movement of transformation, for your voice matters in every story. The journey had just begun.